Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Renegade Immortal episode number 204 based on novel. So let's start. 5 years passed by in a flash. All of the cultivators on planet Qingling, no matter what cultivation level, were busy during these 5 years. Zhong Xinhai considered for a long time and decided to not conceal Wang Lin's request. He spread Wang Lin's request so every cultivation family knew of it. However, the Zhong family gained the identity of Wang Lin's messengers. During these 5 years of time, these cultivators traveled among the mortals and constantly collected their resentment. This aura existed on almost every mortal, the only difference was the amount. There were simply too many mortals on planet Qingling. In 5 years of time, less than 40% was collected. Seeing that half the time had passed, Zhong Xinhai became anxious. However, right now was already the fastest they could go. Even he himself had gone out to collect from the mortal world. Everyone in the family that had at least reached the 5th layer of qi condensation were sent out. During these 5 years of time, Wang Lin sat on top of the mountain refining his treasures. What he refined was the mountain and river screen inside his origin soul. It was seriously damaged. Inside Wang Lin's origin soul, thunder was fused into it to help repair it. In addition, there was the celestial mountain. Due to the crack, soul extraction had become unstable. Wang Lin used his origin soul's energy to slowly refine and repair it. As for the crown fused with red butterfly's blue rose, Wang Lin had studied it for a long time but was unable to see through it. These 3 treasures were things he had just obtained. While refining them, Wang Lin took some time and combined them with what he saw from the path to the 3rd step. He took out some ordinary magical treasures from his bag. One was the Soul Lasher. This whip had followed Wang Lin for a long time, and its power had obvious advantages and disadvantages. Before, Wang Lin didn't see it as important, but right now he cared about it a lot. Wang Lin looked at the Soul Lasher in his hand and muttered, "Out of all my treasures, in terms of intelligence, it can't compare to the Celestial Sword or the Half-Moon Blade. In terms of defense, it can't compare to the 1 billion Soul Flag or the Mountain and River Screen. In terms of abilities, it can't compare to the Celestial Mountain or the God-Slaying War Chariot. But this is the only treasure that contains the aura of the 3rd step I saw. This thing is indeed very strange." This whip looked very normal, but the heavenly ghost almost lost its wit when it saw this whip. It was as if it recognized it. Extracting origin souls is in line with the source of Tao. It can also be considered karma, with the body being karmic cause and origin soul being karmic effect. This is a treasure that was refined on the latter part of the karma Tao. Wang Lin's eyes shined as he pondered. His domain had gradually transformed from the life and death domain to the karma domain. This domain was simply too large. Wang Lin had only touched the tip of the iceberg, but he could already feel how majestic it was. My current comprehension of the karma domain isn't enough to create something real, like the underworld river. However, after seeing the path to the 3rd step, I gained some understanding. As Wang Lin's right hand rubbed the Soul Lasher, his eyes shined brighter and brighter. He thought of a way to use the power of materialized karma domain before he could actually make it materialize. This was to make sure that he was adequately prepared for this trip to the Thunder Celestial Realm. Using the Soul Lasher to help condense the karma domain should work. As Wang Lin pondered, he made a decision. If it was someone else, they would be afraid and would hesitate for a long time and would ultimately be unable to make a decision. This was because they didn't know if this choice was correct or whether it would interfere with comprehending their existence. However, Wang Lin was different, as he had clearly seen the path ahead. He knew that at most this would affect his domain a bit, but it wouldn't be anything big. After pondering for a bit, Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he picked up the Soul Lasher. "I'll make you the implementation of my domain." Wang Lin's eyes released a strange light and he placed the whip in his lap. He then closed his eyes and began to carefully refine it. His mind had to be connected to the treasure so that the domain could slowly enter it. Time often passed without leaving a trace. Spring passed and autumn came. In a flash, another 3 years went by. Wang Lin had lived on this planet Qingling for 8 years. During these 8 years, he had never left the mountain. In fact, aside from Zhong Xinhai, no other cultivator on the planet had seen him. However, the owner of planet Qingling, the ancestor of planet Qingling, began to weigh heavier and heavier in the cultivators' hearts. In particular, that thick, black fog surrounding the mountain had caused many cultivators' hearts to turn cold. However, there were some cultivators who had cultivated stupidity. They would charge in to provoke might of this so-called master of planet Qingling. All of them were immediately devoured by the black fog as soon as they rushed in. The only thing that remained were the mournful screams that echoed across the world as if they were warning the cultivators to not enter. As for mortals, they weren't so troublesome. When they saw the black fog, they knew that it was filled with danger, so none of them entered this place. If they entered because they were lost, Wang Lin wouldn't commit pointless murder. The soul flag contained Wang Lin's wool. These mortals would go into a coma and would be sent to the edge of the region. During these 3 years, Wang Lin focused on refining his treasures. The only noisy thing was Shuligua. He had somehow broken the seal that Wang Lin placed on the bag of holding. Although he still wasn't able to come out, he always clamored non-stop. On this day, the soul lasher in Wang Lin's lap had some karma domain infused into it. This made it easier to control than with divine sense. At the same time, with the fusion of the latter part of the karma domain, the soul lasher was even more powerful. However, at this moment, the strange voice appeared once more. "Little Lin, do you dare to let out your grandpa Shu? I'm powerful now, so you don't dare to release me anymore. Rest assured, this old man will not act against you. I have thought about it, and from now on, you will follow me. Our identities will change and I'll be the master." Shuligua's arrogant voice was extremely overbearing. Wang Ling frowned. If it wasn't for the fact that he knew that he was short on time to deal with Shuligua, he would have already taught Shuligua a lesson. Not only did Shuligua not understand this, he had grown even more presumptuous. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. He slapped his bag of holding and coldly said, "Get out here." "Oh? You dare to talk like that to your grandpa Shu? Little Lin, you don't seem to understand the situation. I'm no longer the old Shuligua." Shuligua's voice came out and a black mist came out with him. This black mist was filled with sword energy and immediately charged out. In midair, the mist formed Shuligua's appearance. Just as he appeared, he immediately laughed loudly and roared, "Even I, Shuligua, will have my day. The heavens aren't blind, I'll finally be able to raise my head up high." Wang Ling coldly looked at Shuligua and didn't speak. Shuligua finished speaking and looked at Wang Lin, revealing a fierce gaze. At this moment, he returned to his arrogant appearance. His whole body shrank and suddenly formed a large sword in mid-air. This sword looked exactly like the celestial sword. As it charged, a powerful sword energy shot out. This sword energy also contained an ancient sword intent. It was extremely shocking. He charged straight at Wang Lin as if he could break through the void and closed in an instant. Wang Lin's eyes were still cold. When Shuligua closed in, Wang Lin didn't move, but the soul lasher on his lap moved and flew into the air. A mysterious aura spread out and immediately surrounded a 1,000-foot area. This aura contained an unimaginable force that made it seem as if this 1,000-foot area was separated from the outside and was filled with a majesty powerful enough to make someone collapse. Shuligua felt it most clearly. He exclaimed and the big sword he formed became unstable. However, the big sword suddenly released even more sword energy. He was obviously going to resist by force. At this moment, Wang Lin's voice slowly echoed. "It is difficult for the things in this world to escape karma. There is no place without karmic cause, and karmic effect is everywhere." The soul lasher flickered and created an explosion as if it had opened the doors of fate. The soul lasher connected end to end, forming a circle. Shuligua's large sword involuntarily fell into the circle and quickly disintegrated. Karmic effect is the source of all karmic cause. Wang Lin's voice sounded again. The disintegration of the large sword happened in almost an instant, and it reverted back into the black fog. Shuligua's face appeared in the black fog. His face was filled with terror and his eyes were filled with fear. Master, Master, I was wrong. Little Shu was wrong, really wrong this time. Spare me once, please spare me this time. Shuligwa immediately began to plead. His voice was extremely miserable. Wang Lin's eyes were cold as he looked at Shuligwa. Shuligwa's black mist was rapidly disintegrating inside the circle as Wang Lin calmly said, "You obtained the ancient sword intent because of me, so the fruit of that also belongs to me." Shuligwa was shocked to find that the black fog that formed his body started dissipating even faster. A sense of crisis immediately emerged from him, causing him to lose his wit. He immediately begged, "Master, I know I was wrong, and I will never dare to rebel again. Besides, it was you who turned me into a devil. If you hadn't, I wouldn't be here today. Isn't that right, Master? Isn't that karma?" Shuligwa was very anxious as he spoke. He could feel that he was about to completely disintegrate. The regret in his heart had already filled his body. I should have never provoked this fiend. Over these countless years, I have never succeeded once. Shuligwa, Shuligwa, how could your memory be this bad? This old Wang devil is more of a devil than me? Shuligwa wished he could give himself a slap. Wang Lin revealed a faint smile and said, "That is your karma, not mine." The circle formed by the soul lasher loosened. It then turned into a ray of light and disappeared. After the domain fused with it, it no longer had a physical form. It became like one's domain, something that couldn't be seen but could still be felt. Shuligwa, who almost collapsed, immediately backed up a few steps. The terror in his eyes was still very strong. He had lost all the arrogance from before and his face was filled with flattery. He quickly said, "Master's spell is indeed fierce. In fact, Little Shu only did this in order to let Master get more practice. In fact, Little Zu's loyalty to Master is sky high without a thought of rebellion." Wang Lin looked at Shuligwa and calmly said, "Since you can come out, there is no need to go back into the bag of holding. You can stay within 5,000 kilometers of this mountain. Go comprehend your ancient sword intent." Shuligwa was startled. He didn't expect this old field to be this easygoing. His eyes turned and quickly said, "Master, Shuligwa is reluctant to leave you. I only feel steadfast when I'm near you." As he spoke, he carefully looked at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression remained the same and he nodded. "Since that is the case, then stay here." Shuligwa revealed a smile, but his heart felt bitter. Would this fiend really let me roam freely within 5,000 kilometers? This isn't right, this doesn't match this fiend's personality. There must be some trick. HMPH, it is lucky that I, 11 Ligwa, am smart, or else I might have suffered more. Shuligwa felt very proud as he thought about this. He quickly took form and sat down. After a while, he was a bit disturbed. He would occasionally look at Wang Lin to try to find some clues. Wang Lin stopped paying attention to Shuligwa and slapped his bag of holding. The mosquito and the thunder toad immediately appeared. The mosquito lied comfortably on the thunder toad's back. After it appeared, it let out a cry toward Wang Lin, but it remained laying on the thunder toad's back as if it wasn't willing to leave no matter what. After they appeared, the other mosquito beasts followed them. Although they were still considered to be in their larvae state and not grown up yet, they all still appeared very ferocious. As for the thunder toad, it seemed to be used to the despicable mosquito beast on its back. After it appeared, its belly expanded and it found a location on the side and seemed to have gone to sleep. Shortly after, the god-slaying war chariot appeared and turned into the thunder beast. As soon as it appeared, it saw the thunder toad and began to roar. Thunder toad's originally lazy appearance suddenly disappeared. Its eyes were wide open and it stared at the thunder beast with its belly expanding. The mosquito beast was also full of spirit as it looked at the thunder beast with interest. Shuligwa was on the side, and his eyes opened wide. He carefully looked at the thunder beast and thought, "Master is really master. It hasn't been long, but now there is another dumb beast. Fight, it's best if you all fight. Then you will all know that I have been with Master the longest. However, I have to say that Master really does have luck with beasts. I old Shu, am very humble and only have luck with beauties. Shuligwa's expression entered a trance as he thought about the little beauty in the demon spirit land. Alas, since ancient times, sentiments lead to regret. This is a truth that old fiend Wang can't understand. Shuligwa felt quite regretful. He looked at the thunder beast, thunder toad, and mosquitoes before looking at Wang Lin. He felt a sense of loneliness and pride. The refining of treasures continued, but at this time this was not the focus as time was limited. Wang Lin decided to use what he saw of the third step and adjust his spells. He began to ponder. Among the spells he controlled, the most powerful spell he could use was the Heavenly Chop. However, before he broken through the first step of cultivation and enter the illusory yin stage, it would consume his precious origin energy. After that was the Stop spell. This spell wasn't any weaker than the Heavenly Chop. If used at the right moment, it would play a decisive role. Aside from those three spells, there were the Finger of Death, Demonic Finger, and Underworld Finger. There were also the three abilities of the Underworld River. Tao Form's Underworld River, Formation of River Soul, and Power of the Underworld River. What he needed to adjust were the three fingers. If he continued to use them, then it would harm him greatly on his path toward the third step. These three spells were not complete and would cause his body harm. As for why they would be harmful to his path to the third step, Wang Lin didn't know, but he had a feeling. As he pondered, he flicked his finger and used all three spells to gain some insight. The spells came out one after another. He gradually increased the speed of the spells and kept casting them one after the other. Wang Lin frowned as he used the vague feeling in his mind to look for clues and gradually improved the spells. This process was extremely tiresome, so it didn't take long before he felt tired. After resting for a short while, Wang Lin began once more. The wheel of time moved once more and 2 more years passed. During these 2 years, Wang Lin spent most of his time focusing on refining the spells. However, in the end he wasn't able to achieve satisfactory results. Wang Lin understood that he was too impatient. However, he didn't give up and did his best to slowly improve his spells. If someone at the second step saw this, they would be shocked. This kind of improvement was the same as deducing the original celestial spell from the current spell. Not to mention for him, this was something very difficult for even people like the All-Seer. During the 2 years of time, the Thunder Toad and Thunder Beast were very hostile to each other, but they didn't fight. The Thunder Toad was too weak and the Thunder Beast felt disdain even though it felt that the Thunder Toad could potentially pose a threat in the future. As for the Mosquito Beast, its interest shifted from the Thunder Toad to the Thunder Beast. It flew around the Thunder Beast as if it wanted to lie on the Thunder Beast's back. However, every time it tired, it wasn't successful, but that only made it more interested. Shuligwa felt disdain toward all of this. As time passed, he noticed that Wang Lin had completely forgotten about them. After considering it carefully, he went 1,000 feet away from Wang Lin and cheerfully roamed the mountain. However, he did remember Wang Lin's words and didn't dare to go more than 5,000 kilometers from here. He gradually became bored as there wasn't a single person within the 5,000-kilometer area. People tend to stay far away from this area, which made Shuligwa very depressed. About 1.5 years ago, there were some cultivators outside that were originally afraid to come in. He ended up using spells to trick them into entering. After playing around with them, he released them. However, from then onward, no more cultivators dared to come. Even many years later, whenever those cultivators thought about what had happened to them, their hearts would turn colder. On this day, he was extremely bored while flying around the area, hoping for some mortals to enter. He suddenly shivered and an excitement that he hadn't felt for a long time immediately filled his body. Shuligwa's eyes glowed as he stared at the fog and began shouting excitedly. Someone finally came. Zhong Xinhai appeared outside the fog with a tired face and his body was filled with death aura. Beside him was a very tense middle-aged man. This person was wearing black robes and his cultivation level was also at the peak of the nascent soul stage. The middle-aged man looked rather warily at the black fog in the distance and whispered, "Dad, do we really have to go?" Zhong Xinhai said, in a serious tone, "Of course we have to." Your father's lifespan is about to be over. Aside from completing Senior's request, this trip is to also introduce you to Senior as my successor. Once I die, you will replace me and act as the messenger for Senior to ensure the existence of our Zhong family forever. The middle-aged man hesitated and said, "But Dad, I heard from some friends that this Senior has some quirks." More than a year ago, a few friends were. Before he could finish, Zhong Xinhai stared at him and the middle-aged man immediately shut up. Shuligua was like a ghost as he quickly approached the area. He was hiding in the black fog, so the Zhong father and son didn't notice him. Shuligua's face was filled with excitement as he looked at the father and son and muttered, "Yes, yes, that old one is dying and won't be able to withstand me playing around. Your grandpa Shu will be nice and let your body go. As for the little one..." The excitement in Shuligua's eyes became stronger and stronger as he looked at the middle-aged man from the fog. There was even a trace of depravity in his eyes. He let out a dry cough and spoke in an upright tone, "Who is it? State your name." Zhong Xinhai took a deep breath. He stopped 5,000 kilometers away from the mountain and didn't enter. Instead, he clasped his hands and respectfully said, "Junior Zhong Xinhai has completed Senior's request and requests to meet Senior." His voice was hoarse as it slowly entered the black fog. Shuligua's eyes turned and he said, "The old one can come in. I'll take you to meet my master." Zhong Xinhai was startled and hesitated for a bit before stepping into the black fog. The moment he entered, he felt a wind wrap around him and his body was rapidly sent forward. Shortly after, he arrived at the peak and the wind dissipated. He immediately saw Wang Lin and respectfully said, "Senior, Junior didn't disappoint you and gathered all the resentment on planet Qingling." As he spoke, he took out the jades, 1,000 in total. He placed them all on the ground and respectfully took a few steps back. After Shuligua sent away Zhong Xinhai, he excitedly returned back to the edge of the fog. He looked at the middle-aged man outside and said, "Little brat, come in, don't be afraid. Your grandpa Shu will give you some benefits." When he saw that the middle-aged man was still hesitating, he immediately shouted, "Why haven't you come in?" The middle-aged man clenched his teeth and stepped into the black fog. Wang Lin opened his eyes and scanned the jades. He immediately felt the resentment inside them. There was an alarming amount of resentment, as if there was a storm of resentful aura. Wang Lin slowly said, "Very good. The person you brought will be my messenger outside of Hengyun Peak in the future." After pondering for a bit, he took out a pill and threw it at Zhong Xinhai. "Give it to your son. If he is gifted enough, perhaps he can rely on the aura inside the pill and gain a slightly higher chance to reach the soul formation stage." Zhong Xinhai's face was filled with ecstasy. He quick took the pill and put it away like a treasure. Then he emotionally said, "Thank you, Senior." Wang Lin commanded, "This resentment is an illusionary thing, and it will regenerate. In the future, your Zhong family will be in charge of collecting it every few years." Then he took out a few red seeds and gave them to Zhong Xinhai. "These are called Celestial Ascension fruits. Get people to plant them and speed up their growth with spiritual energy. Over the next 10 years, plant as many as possible." Zhong Xinhai quickly nodded. Wang Lin had gotten those seeds from Qian Kui's bag of holding. Zhong Xinhai and his son left the Hengyun Peak. However, the son seemed to be in a trance, giving off a strange expression and even a trace of savoring. As for Shuligua, he was grounded by Wang Lin. If it wasn't for the fact that what Shuligua did wasn't too bad, Wang Lin would have directly refined Shuligua. After being grounded to be within 1,000 feet of Wang Lin, Shuligua had an expression like he was wronged. He no longer dared to sneak out. All he did was look into the distance all day and sigh in his heart. "I was just taking over their physical bodies and then enjoying the feeling of having flesh. How big of a thing can it be, alas?" Wang Lin didn't have time to pay attention to Shuligua. After grounding Shuligua, he once again focused on perfecting his spells. During that time, he slowly absorbed the resentment into his underworld river. After absorbing the resentment, the underworld river was different from before. After absorbing the resentment, the soul of the underworld river gradually took shape. Time quickly passed. The improvement of the spells cost Wang Lin too much energy. Although he still wasn't successful, the constant improvement allowed him to continue comprehending the direction of the third step, so Wang Lin's domain was gradually becoming stronger. Finally, on his 18th year on planet Qingling, his life and death domain reached completion without any flaws. This meant that once he had enough celestial spiritual energy, he would truly be at the peak of the first step. Wang Lin still had some celestial jades, but he didn't know if he had enough. Even if it wasn't enough, Wang Lin could still drink the celestial liquid. This time he had to reach the peak of the late stage of Ascendant and reach the peak of the first step of cultivation. The first step of cultivation, Wang Lin's eyes shined brightly. When I reached the Ascendant stage, ancient demon Bei Luo said that heaven-defying cultivators would attract divine retribution. I wonder if divine retribution will arrive once more when I break through the first step and enter the illusory yin stage. Wang Lin looked up at the sky and his eyes turned cold. A large formation was built above the vast desert on the northwestern side of planet Qingling with celestial jades. Wang Lin sat down in the center of the formation and cultivated. Every time he took a breath, he would absorb a large amount of celestial spiritual energy into his body. This repeated again and again. The celestial spiritual energy in his body was slowly condensing. The peak of the late stage of Ascendant was not something unattainable for cultivators, but it was still a step only a few could take. The reason was not domain or celestial jades, but origin energy. If the origin energy fused into one's origin soul was insufficient when they reached the Ascendant stage, then even if they could reach the Ascendant stage, they would never reach the peak. At the same time, even if one gathered enough origin energy but suffered injuries to their origin soul, causing them to lose their precious origin energy that was fused with their origin soul, then they wouldn't be able to reach the peak. It could be said that origin energy was the key to reaching the peak of the first step of cultivation. Adding on the fact that Ascendant cultivators couldn't absorb origin energy from the world to recover, it was natural that not many could reach the peak. After Wang Lin cultivated inside the Thunder Lake, he reached the limit of origin energy his origin soul could hold and reached the most basic requirement. As his domain was refined, it helped drive his cultivation. He slowly stepped toward peak of the late stage of Ascendant as he absorbed celestial spiritual energy. However, the amount of celestial spiritual energy required to reach the peak of first step was a terrifying amount. After absorbing for a year, Wang Lin used up all of the celestial jades. He then took out the celestial liquid and drank it without any hesitation. The celestial liquid entered his body along with a powerful sense of drunkenness. Wang Lin's body gave off a white mist. This white mist contained the scent of wine and spread across the area. At the same time, the celestial liquid gave off a large amount of celestial spiritual energy inside Wang Lin's body. It was like a powerful force that was rapidly pushing his cultivation toward peak of the late stage of Ascendant. To complete with just a thought, and celestial spiritual energy moved along with one's aura. This was the description for the peak of the late stage of Ascendant. One's domain was complete without a single flaw and a firm Tao heart. The body was filled with celestial spiritual energy, and it felt like even one's aura was filled with celestial spiritual energy. Wang Lin reached the peak of the late stage of Ascendant 19 years and 8 months after he arrived on planet Qingling. All the celestial jades within countless kilometers of Wang Lin turned to dust when he broke through. Grass started growing out from the deserted land, and it was now filled with life. Wang Lin slowly opened his eyes, which contained the heavens. After 1,000 years of cultivation, I finally reached completion. Wang Lin let out a breath of relief and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Looking back to those 1,000 years, he was once merely a little person at the Hangyu sect, but at this moment, he was at the peak of the first step and had even surpassed Shu QC. This was something no one on planet Suzaku could have expected. Wang Lin didn't get up but touched his bag of holding and a golden celestial brush appeared in his hand. Wang Lin held it in his hand and began drawing before him as if his hands were dancing. His previous limit was 7 strokes. Now he completed 7 strokes in one breath and then drew one more to complete the 8th stroke. The dazzling light from the runes was enough to take one's mind. The power of 8 strokes is 1 level above 7 strokes. Wang Lin's eyes were peaceful. Right now he looked more like a scholar than a cultivator. When he put away the brush, the rune disappeared. The divine sense split into the runes returned to Wang Lin's body. Wang Lin stood up, took a step forward, and disappeared without a trace. Half a month later, a bolt of thunder left planet Qingling and went straight into the sky. Wang Lin sat on the back of the thunder beast with his eyes closed and remained silent. All of the cultivators on planet Qingling raised their heads. Along with the respect in their eyes, they also relaxed a bit. It was as if that invisible pressure gradually disappeared as Wang Lin left. Before leaving, Wang Lin picked all of the celestial ascension fruits that had grown during these 10 years. Also, another wave of resentment had gathered. With this additional resentment, the underworld river soul was showing signs of awakening. Thunder streaked across the stars and Wang Lin left planet Qinglin after living there for 20 years. This place was his cave. After obtaining a thunder furnace, he would come back here, as entering the thunder celestial realm from here would be safer. As the thunderbolt rushed through space, Wang Lin opened his eyes and began to ponder. If he wanted to go to the thunder celestial realm, he would need a thunder furnace. Without it, there would be no way to enter the thunder celestial realm. Wang Lin naturally knew this. However, the All-Heaven star system was different from the Alliance star system. The furnaces were not randomly dispersed. For some unknown reason, they all appeared together inside the Thunder Celestial Temple. The Thunder Celestial Temple would then assign a set amount to each cultivation family. Now there were only 3 months until the Thunder Celestial Realm would open. This was when all the families would obtain their thunder furnaces. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he made a decision. Since I don't have a thunder furnace, let's just steal one. Wang Lin's right hand lightly patted the thunder beast's head. The thunder beast let out a roar as if it was enjoying it. In truth, if he searched for Shengonghu, he could get one from him. However, Shengonghu's cultivation was too powerful. If they met too often, Shengonghu might see through him, so unless it was important, Wang Lin didn't want to look for that person. Not every cultivator that entered the Thunder Celestial Realm had entered the second step. After all, there weren't many second-step cultivators. Most cultivators were between the soul transformation and ascendant stages. At the southern domain of the All-Heaven star system, with the help of the jade that Shengonghu left behind, Wang Lin found a cultivation planet. Wang Lin didn't bother to check the name of the two families. Every time the Thunder Celestial Realm opened, the two families here would obtain 1 or 2 furnaces. More importantly, neither of the two families had someone beyond the peak of the late stage of Ascendant. After arriving on the cultivation planet, Wang Lin scanned it with his divine sense. He found that the 2 heads of the 2 cultivation families weren't there. He drifted among the stars as he closed his eyes and cultivated. Time slowly passed. 1 month before the Thunder Celestial Realm opened, more than 10 rays of light came toward Wang Lin like meteors. Among the 10-plus cultivators, one of them was at the illusory yin stage, while the others varied between the ascendant stage and soul transformation stage. They moved very fast but suddenly stopped in the distance as their gazes fell on Wang Lin. The cultivator at the illusory yin stage was an old man who had silver hair and his eyes were shining. There wasn't much origin energy inside his body, and the origin energy that was present wasn't very stable yet. It was obvious that he had just reached the illusory yin stage not long ago. He stepped forward as he carefully looked at Wang Lin, and his eyes revealed a look of uncertainty. The old man asked, "Why has this Lord Messenger come to planet Chengtan?" Wang Lin opened his eyes and frowned indiscernibly. His eyes were calm as he slowly asked, "Did you all come back from picking the thunder furnaces?" The old man's expression changed and he said, "That's correct." "What does Lord Messenger want? Please speak." Wang Lin calmly said, "I need a thunder furnace." The old man looked at Wang Lin for a long time and then laughed. His laughter contained a hint of arrogance. His eyes lit up and he shouted, "During this trip to the Thunder Celestial Temple, I heard some rumors of someone posing as messenger of the Thunder Celestial Temple. Originally, I thought it was absurd, but today after seeing you, this old man has determined that you are fake." "Oh?" Wang Lin's expression remained neutral as he calmly looked at the old man. The old man sneered. Which messenger of the Thunder Celestial Temple doesn't have a lot of subordinate families? Obtaining a Thunder Furnace would be extremely simple. Moreover, I have met all the messengers in the Southern Domain, but you are extremely unfamiliar. More importantly, all of the messengers are gathered at the Thunder Celestial Temple. Until the Thunder Celestial Realm opens, they won't come out. Wang Lin nodded and no longer wasted time with this nonsense. The shadow behind him moved and the Celestial Guard appeared. With one step, it immediately charged out and threw a punch. This punch contained a large amount of sonic booms as it charged toward the old man. The old man's expression changed. He thought that Wang Lin was only at the peak of the late stage of Ascendant. He even thought that the Thunder Beast under Wang Lin was fake. He never would have expected Wang Lin to have such a puppet. After a cold snort, the old man formed a seal and pointed forward. A black flame suddenly appeared in his hand. With a flick, the flame shot out and split into countless sparks that immediately surrounded the area. His family members had already retreated and were watching from a distance. The celestial puppet didn't mind the sparks at all and let them land on its body. Not only did it not slow down, it moved even faster. The punch whistled through the air and with a step it arrived before the old man. The punch broke through space and shot toward the old man. The old man's expression changed slightly and he immediately retreated. At the same time, his hand formed a seal and a flame shield immediately appeared in front of his body. The Celestial Guard's punch landed on the flame shield, creating a loud explosion. Cracks immediately appeared on the flame shield and then it collapsed. As the sound echoed, the old man retreated with a pale face. The Celestial Guard was also pushed back several steps. There was a black flame burning its arm and slowly spreading over its body. I only want a Thunder Furnace. Wang Lin calmly looked at the old man. The old man stared at Wang Lin. The punch from the puppet shocked him greatly. Unless he used origin spells, it would be impossible for him to defeat the puppet that was similar to his cultivation level. For this person to have such a puppet, he must not be ordinary. Even if he is impersonating a messenger of the Thunder Celestial Temple, it has nothing to do with me. It's just... If I were to just hand over a Thunder Furnace, then all of my Zhong family's face will be lost. The old man was in a difficult situation. If Wang Lin had reached the second step, then perhaps the old man would have just handed one over. After all, the family had obtained 3 Thunder Furnaces, so giving one away as a gift wasn't an issue. However, Wang Lin was only at the peak of the late stage of Ascendant. If he were to just directly surrender one, then he would lose all face. Wang Lin didn't want to deal with this nonsense. Although this person's cultivation level was outside his expectations, the old man had just entered the illusory yin stage and was not stable. With Wang Lin's peak late stage ascendant cultivation, along with his spells and treasures, battling this old man was not difficult. He slapped his bag of holding and a mountain stone immediately appeared in his hand. The stone immediately became a large mountain. It gave off rich celestial spiritual energy along with a hint of pressure. Wang Lin's right hand pressed on it and the mountain immediately trembled. Then an ancient aura gathered below his right hand. When he raised his hand, strands of fog gathered to form a fist-sized cloud of fog. At the moment the old man saw this, his expression changed greatly. Without any hesitation and with horror in his eyes, he exclaimed, "Soul extraction spell. You're only at the peak of the first step, how can you use a spell like this?" Wang Lin's gaze was calm as his right hand pushed forward and the fog immediately flew out with a powerful pressure toward the old man. At the same time, Wang Lin charged out, following closely after the fog. He raised his right hand and a bolt of thunder gathered in his hand. The roar of thunder suddenly came from the stars and in a flash, a real bolt of thunder formed in Wang Lin's hand. Right now Wang Lin was like a celestial that controlled thunder and lightning. With the lightning in hand, his eyes were cold as he walked toward the old man. The old man's expression changed greatly and he retreated once more. Both of his hands formed a seal and pointed between his eyebrows. The spot between his eyebrows began to move strangely and a gap immediately formed as if there was a third eye. His third eye became crimson as the blood in his whole body rapidly circulated and seemed to have condensed on his face. The origin energy in his body also moved like crazy and gathered between his eyebrows along with his blood. Doing all of this made him feel as if he was being torn apart. The moment the large amount of pain filled his body, a third eye slowly opened between his brows. The old man let out a roar as he stared at Wang Lin. Then both of his hands formed a seal and pointed at the 2 pressure points below his ears. In an instant, the third eye between his eyebrows suddenly opened. A red light came from inside it and spread out like a fan. Wang Lin's expression changed. This person's spell was simply too strange, so he decided to slow down a bit. At this moment, the mountain soul closed in, and at the same time, the third eye opened. Within the red light, the mountain soul began to rapidly disintegrate. This caused Wang Lin's eyes to narrow and he threw the bolt of thunder in his hand without any hesitation. The bolt of thunder charged straight at the old man. The old man was unable to use the origin spell at its full power because he had just reached the illusory yin stage 2 years ago and was lacking in origin energy. Due to this, the red light from the third eye only lasted 3 breaths of time before he could no longer bear it. The third eye automatically closed and dissipated. As the lightning and the mountain soul that wasn't completely disintegrated closed in, the old man clenched his teeth. He then took something out from his bag of holding and raised it above his head. Wang Lin's left hand reached out and took the thing in the old man's hand. This object was the thunder furnace. After putting away the thunder furnace, Wang Lin didn't leave. His eyes gazed off a strange light as he looked at the old man and slowly asked, "Would you exchange the spell you just used with me?" This video will end here.